Hey everybody, welcome. Today we're going to talk about a game that I have been working on called Remnants of the Dawn. Me and a friend of mine, Stephen O'Donnell, over at Turn the Game On, have been making this game, Remnants of the Dawn. And you can see here it is on Steam. We've got our Steam page up. It's been interesting, the process of making a game for Steam and actually like completing it. We gave ourselves 1 month to see what we could do, and then slowly that turned into 2 months, and then eventually we ended up at 4 months. So it took a little longer than we would have hoped, but still it's turned out to be a pretty solid game, and we're pretty happy with it so far. So I wanted to kind of show you the process a little bit here on what we did. If you go to Steam, you can see we have this Remnants of the Dawn page up, and you can check out the video. A lot of this is old art because we haven't updated things lately because we've been so busy finishing the game, of course. But I kind of wanted to show you a little bit about our process. So currently, well, not currently, but we are making the game inside of Unity, which we like. I think Unity's great. I've worked in this industry for some time now, making games on a professional level, and not making indie games per se, but making professional games for studios and things of that nature. I've worked on Spider-Man games, Call of Duty games, a whole lot of games that sucked, but working for other people at big companies. And you know, it's an interesting process working at a big company. You kind of just sort of like are told to stack bricks, and that's what you do, is you stack bricks. What's fun about making your own game is you actually are the one making the important decisions. For example, decisions like how many villains do we want to have, and what do those villains do, and how does that make the gameplay experience more interesting, and what works and what doesn't. And to be honest with you, it's not as easy as it sounds to do that kind of stuff. It's sometimes a lot easier just to stack bricks. You're told by somebody, hey, do this, and you do it because that's what you do. You know, you just do what you're told. That was not the case making our own game. We had to come up with our own characters. We had to come up with not just characters, but we had to come up with levels. What did we want on those levels? What type of experience did we want the player to have? So here you can see part of a level that's been built. So these are some of our villains right here. We have these creatures. We call them kangaroos. So we also have these destroyable boxes. We have these creatures right here. And these creatures are called Crittich. I just always think of them as mini creepies. That I think was one of the first names that we gave them, was mini creepies. And so that's what we call them. Hey, Steven. All right. Steven, my buddy, is online. All right. We have one viewer. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm recording this to put on our YouTube as well, so I don't feel completely stupid just talking to Steven. No, I appreciate Steven. I do. But, if no one's listening and no one's going to, watch this, that would make me feel pretty dumb. But anyway, so here you can see kind of how one of our levels, this would be level 1. And there you can kind of get the overview of the whole level. And I kind of just want to talk a little bit about the process of designing a level and why I ended up with what I ended up with. Of course, there was a lot of, since there's 2 of us working on this project, there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of input. Steven was doing the code, so it was really important that any ideas that we came up with kind of jived with the existing framework, right? So here you can see where you enter, you come down through this chute, sort of like an elevator, but more of like an industrial elevator, and you walk in through this door and you're kind of given your mission. And your mission is simple, is to inspect everything, find cool stuff so you can upgrade your character, you can upgrade your weapons, you can buy more ammo, and to escape the level, basically, and collect as much of that as you can. So we wanted to create an experience. Steven came up with a cool idea where when you come down through here, and you're kind of given your instructions, you then come into this room where the character tells you a little more about your mission, and then you proceed to fight your way through the level, opening doors. This is your final exit right here, and you have to open this door by getting a passcode, a key card. And down here is where you open the lock for that level. So you can kind of get a sense of this level actually went through a lot of changes. I designed one level in the beginning, and then I ended up designing 5 levels total. And the decision was made to combine all those 5 into one. And the reason why is that we wanted this level to be as interesting as possible. And that makes a lot of sense now, because as we were slowly developing the game and coming up with the process, it became clear that we had to sort of narrow our focus and really give the user the maximum experience. So I had designed 5 levels that became 1, which made a lot more work for me to do, but it helped me sort of understand like the importance as I was creating these levels to pack as much into them as I could and make them as interesting as possible. It's not so easy, especially when you're doing when you're wearing a lot of hats, to really focus on one specific task and really make that task sing. Like when you're working at a large company, it's really easy just to kind of hide behind a task and just focus on that one thing. But when you're making an indie game, you have to think of the complete experience. And so maybe just working on textures isn't enough. Maybe just working on shaders isn't enough, or effects, or just coming up with 1 or 2 gameplay devices and making sure those gameplay devices work. When you're doing your own development, you have to kind of think about all that. So I remember we were showing some of these games at one point, like online, we were demoing them, and it was very frustrating to get feedback, because the feedback was kind of all over the place, and it really forced us as creators to evaluate the entire project at once. So we had to kind of like shift hats the whole time, like not only is the lighting too dark, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing in the level, the characters, they don't make any sense, it's kind of all coming at you. So that was one of the sort of the growing pains of working on a project like this. But that being said, I think it's turned out pretty good overall, and we're pretty happy with it. We definitely give it, a positive in terms of what our experience has been working on a project of this scale together, just two people, and also how happy we are with the outcome. It's generally positive. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play the game a little bit for you. As I play the game, I discover... Interesting. It crashed. Alright, I wasn't expecting that. Maybe it's because I'm streaming. I don't know. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm going to run it from Steam, since we have an early version up on Steam. So machine and play. And of course it's going to run on the other monitor. One moment. There was a small technical glitch. So it's running on it's running on the wrong screen. So I'm gonna try and fix that really fast. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that. Surprise. One moment. Technical difficulties. Display capture. It only wants to capture this monitor. Cancel. Well, let's go ahead, since we're having that technical challenge, and start with going back to Unity. If Steven is still listening, you're probably laughing right now. One moment. So I'm loading up Unity Hub. And now I'm going to try to run the level again. And let's see if it works. All right, round 2. Of course it would crash when I'm trying to stream. Here we go. Excellent. Okay, so here's where you enter, and you get your instructions from Amy. The elevator doors lock behind us. Okay, so she's saying, see how there are red lights here and here. Now, part of the fun of creating this game was coming up with, like, what's the point of the game? What are we trying to do? And sometimes you kind of gotta just feel your way through the experience to see what exactly it is you're trying to say. There's something that we like to talk about as iteration. Like you write down your first idea, and then you just continually improve upon that idea by rewriting and rewriting on top of the original idea, coming up with something that is sophisticated and interesting as much as possible. And that was sort of the process that we underwent making this product as well. The first level and the first very simple mechanics that we came up with didn't have all this layering. It didn't have recognition. It didn't have things that you could pick up. It didn't really have much other than we were moving a character around inside of a maze, and then we were able to shoot with that character, and then we were able to pick things up, and so we kind of had to find out exactly what we were trying to do to tell the story as we went. Now, in hindsight, it would have been better if we would have written a lot of that down chance to really come up with a concrete idea. But since it was kind of our first time really making a game like this one, we also wanted to just experiment and see what we could do in a short amount of time. And I wasn't expecting we could do as much as we did. I mean, we have a bunch of levels. They're fleshed out pretty well. They look good, and there's a lot to them, and the gameplay feels really solid. So it came together. It's not perfect. Are there issues? Yes. Is the story, does it communicate as well as I hope to know? Is there a learning curve? Absolutely. Are there things I would have done differently? Certainly. But overall, it came together. Steve is telling me the game volume is higher than the voice. And did that solve it, Steven? Waiting to see. I think that solved it. So as you run through the level, you're going to encounter different villains or different enemies, and the sophistication in terms of like how hard these enemies are to kill gradually becomes harder, and the importance of collecting all these boxes with loot in them becomes more important. These purple items allow you to buy things in town. So as kind of a last minute thought, we were like, oh, you know what would be cool is if you could buy things in town and you could upgrade your character. That's something that we had kind of thought about at the beginning, but as we were building the game, it became very clear that we absolutely had to do that. It was sort of critical to the success of the game because it wasn't as interesting as we had wanted it to be. So the red things give you health, the purple things give you something called essence, which you use to upgrade your character, and then any gold things are currency. And then these are the door locks that unlock the doors. Visually, there was a lot of iterations that went on as well. For example, like on this particular area, I put some blue things here and here, and I left this electricity on because there's another room similar to this. And what I wasn't aware of at the time when I made it, I became aware later, was that people were getting confused on which room you were in. So little things like that can really slip between the cracks when you're working on a project at this scale with so few people. Kind of at the last push, we did a lot of sound effects. So these items give off sound, 3D sound, and so there was like the tuning process that was also involved in making sure that sound, it sounded good, and it got really kind of technical too, because like this element over here, I wanted to have a sound, so I had to scale them. And in Unity, it's pretty easy to scale sound. You just create like an envelope around it, and you can scale that so that you hear it no matter how far away that you go. And then things like the exploding boxes, the gunshots. There was a bit of the death sounds of the villains. There's a lot of details to consider when you're adding in the sound. We also changed a lot of colors of things. Like, for example, the essence is now purple. I think originally it was blue. At one time it was red or orange at one time as well. So sometimes you kind of have to see everything out there in the game to really know what's working and what isn't, which is kind of frustrating because you kind of want to get it right the first time when you want to maximize like your efficiency, but it's video game development. It's not a clear-cut science. Some things look good until you put something next to them that looks better. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, that looks terrible, so you have to go back and fix it, or that doesn't feel as good as it could, so you have to go back and fix it. So you try to minimize that as much as possible, but it's still, I mean, it's going to happen. It's an art more than it is a science, in my opinion anyway, making a game enjoyable, making an experience, something that is something that people will want to play, because you have to play through the game a lot and go, okay, is this working, is this not working, is this fun, is this not fun, like what is working, what isn't working, and kind of like go, okay, well, let's take the things that are working and let's keep those, and take the things that aren't working and get rid of them. And how does that process work? So now we're going to unlock our first door lock. You can see it's turned green. You can run through. So right now we're fighting our way through like a dark laboratory with mysterious creatures that are being created in the labs. The laboratory itself, like just the general art style, went through several iterations as well. The first version was very clean, and then we slowly made it more and more like lived in. We also, those turrets were sort of like, oh, these turrets will be fun. What can we do with these? And we started sticking them in the levels. So here I kind of also like had to hint at, you know, what the story of the game is. So you'll notice we'll pass things like this that kind of hint at what the story of the game is, and, you know, what we're trying to say behind the scenes. I also enjoyed making kind of like small spaces and big spaces. This right here is one of my favorite spaces in terms of like the bigger spaces. You walk across this really long catwalk. And it, you know, I just had to keep playing and playing with the visuals and with the assets until they started to feel right, you know, they started to feel good. Here are the mini creepies. Also, like if you notice, some of the boxes explode a bunch, and some explode just one box at a time. Playing through the game enough, you kind of wanted to start to add little things that would enhance the experience, and that is something that we felt enhanced the experience. Just, you know, it got kind of boring shooting boxes all the time, so one box would destroy more. And there's, you know, it's kind of hard to, I mean, in hindsight, it's 2020, but at the time, it was kind of hard to design for that in advance, because it's hard to experience something until you've actually played it. So writing it all out on a piece of paper, sometimes you miss things like that. I remember working at larger studios and seeing a lot of the creators leave meetings where they had done a lot of testing, and they seemed really upset and really discouraged. Sometimes you design something and then you watch someone play it, and they totally don't get it. Like, they miss it completely. They don't understand what you're trying to say, and it's very easy to do that. So even the best laid plans is what I'm saying, sometimes still don't work out the way that you expect. It's kind of like having someone proofread your essay and they find all these things. So here's your first time encountering the villain of the game, Arthur. It's like this it's this advanced AI that has become so advanced it can actually materialize in front of you inside of this laboratory. It's also the one you discover is creating all these creatures to destroy the human race, because it's become jealous of humans' ability to love each other. which is kind of it's not the most unique idea, but it seemed to serve us well, and I think the story came together pretty well as a whole. We added our own little sort of spin on it, which was fun. And that was a real fun part of the process too, coming up with the story. We really like science fiction type stories, and so this was a great opportunity to explore that side of our personalities. It was really enjoyable. I liked making this game. I had a lot of fun. It can become very monotonous and tedious. For example, you see here we have all this stuff to keep track of, and it goes pretty deep. And even now, there's some things that I have to go back and fix, and there's some text that I have to write, and some voiceovers that I have to redo, and that can become monotonous, but overall the experience has been extremely positive. I mean, if you love doing this kind of stuff, the opportunity to make your own when it comes together is pretty enjoyable. I have worked on projects that didn't come together in the past. We affectionately refer to them as death marches in the industry, where basically you crunch for 10 months straight, let's say, trying to get something done because it's not working, and the executives who keep product testing it keep coming back with negative responses, and they just want you to keep redoing and changing and making things better. And that's just horrible. That's horrible. So at least on this, if people didn't like it, we're like, okay, we don't like it. We don't have to keep redoing it. So here's where you start to kind of go through the logs, and you find more about the backstory for the people that are interested in the backstory. It was important to Steven, and then to myself as well, to have a story-driven game. I am passionate about story. Someone who's worked in the film industry as well, I am passionate about story, and I care about that sort of thing. And I'm grateful that Steven was as well, because he really kind of pushed that. And I think in the end it turned out well. If you read all the logs and you watch the cutscenes and you talk to all the characters in the village, the story does materialize, and you're able to piece together what happened and why things are happening. And then at the end there's a nice little outro that talks about the story as well. I didn't show the intro cutscene in this particular video because we just jumped right into the level. So here I am kind of on the final getaway now. I got the key card and I have to go back to the main exit. It was also fun to I just like the visuals here. How we went from like, we're in this red, all red, and then if you go out here, we're in all blue. So artistically, I was kind of given, I kind of have free reign to do that kind of thing, and that was really enjoyable working on an indie game. You can just kind of like have fun with it. Well, I like this, so I'm going to do it, rather than I'm being told to do this because somebody else thinks it would look good. And they might be full of crap. They might not know what they're talking about. It might look horrible. All right, so we're in the final stretch. We're going to go ahead and go to the final door. Oh, turn green. Great, we can get out. Yay! And now we're going to load into the overworld, hopefully. I'm not sure if... Actually, you know what? I think it may not load because of how the scenes are broken up. But anyway, that's the first level of Remnants of the Dawn, coming out in Steam in pretty soon. It's going to be July 13th, I believe.
Daddy, can you go put me in this bed?
Okay, I'll be right there. The other fun thing about working from home on something like this is you get to spend a lot more time with your kids. which is always great, right, Ethan?
Uh,
All right, come on. I'll be right in. Like I said, working with your kids. All right. Well, thank you all for taking a check out of checking out our game, and I look forward to showing you more levels and more cool stuff and how we built it. Until then, have a great night. Bye.